Okay, so I'd like to welcome all of you, and especially Liz Fraser, who's a new member, has just joined us. So let me begin by welcoming everyone, and especially I'd like to welcome Liz Fraser, who is joining us, a new member. And Liz, I hope you enjoy the meeting and feel free to participate fully. So I would also just like to, before we begin, while I'm calling the meeting to order, and I want to call it ordered by acknowledging that the Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kmaq, the ancestral and traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the Peace and Friendship Treaty signed in this territory and recognizes that we're all treaty people. So we have all members here with the exception of Sonia and Maggie, who have sent their regrets. And we have Katie with us as support staff, and Bailey and Tracy. Is Amy with us today, Katie?
Yes, Amy's here.
Amy's here, okay. And Elizabeth McDonald, she here as well? Okay.
Yes, Elizabeth's also here. Yeah, sorry.
All right. Anyone else that I'm missing?
I think that's it.
Okay, well, let's proceed then. The minutes have been circulated, and are there any errors or omissions that anyone would like to bring to our attention? If not, then can I have a motion that the minutes be approved as circulated?
I'll move. Liz Vickers-Stratton.
Okay, I saw Hannah, and I heard, did I hear you moving it, Hannah? I see you moving it?
I raised my hand, but Liz Vickers also moved it.
Okay, can we do Hannah makes the motion and Liz seconds? Liz Vickers-Stratton, okay. All those in favor, say yay or raise your hand, wave your hand. Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, you've also received the agenda. It's been distributed to everyone. Are there any additions or deletions from Katie? Do you have any additions or deletions?
There's been no additions or deletions from the clerk's office.
Okay, and anyone else have any additions or deletions? No, then can I have a motion to approve the order of business? Moved by Hannah. Looking for a seconder. Thank you, Lisa. Seconded by Lisa. All those in favor say aye or wave your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's carried. Any business arising out of the minutes? I don't believe there is. Katie says no. Now you've seen the agenda, and I'm asking if there's any one of you who might have a conflict of interest based on the agenda you've seen. No conflicts of interest, okay. Number 6 item is consideration of deferred business, and I believe there is no deferred business to be dealt with. Next item, correspondence, petitions, and delegations. Katie, is there any correspondence or petitions or delegations that you're aware of?
There's been no correspondence or petitions received from the clerk's office.
Okay, so then we'll move on to presentations. Veronica, that takes us to you. When Veronica is speaking to us, I just ask the committee members if you could just leave your cameras on. Of course, you want to be silent, but I think it's helpful for Veronica to be able to see your faces when she's speaking. So Veronica is going to speak to us for about 15 minutes or so, and then we are going to have an opportunity to ask her questions and make comments. Veronica is going to speak about some of the initiatives on affordable housing. And Veronica, feel free to introduce yourself more fully, but I'm aware that you work for ACUMA, I should say, and that you are on the executive of the Nova Scotia Association of Black Social Workers, and I believe you are the past president, having served there for several terms. So I'm going to turn the floor over to you. It's all yours, and welcome. We're glad to have you with us.
Thank you, Jane. And you're right. I think you got me nailed down. I am the property manager at Akuma. Have been in that position now for 6 years, and having retired from the provincial government after close to 28 years. As well as you heard, I am the past president of the Association of Black Social Workers. Haven't been president for a couple of terms. So definitely working to improve the lives of people of African descent in this province. One thing I need to correct you on, Jane, is I will, other than saying this, I am going to introduce, and who's going to do the presentation today is the assistant property manager, and Cheyenne Jones, who is also with us. I'm so excited just to have some assistance at Akuma. As I stated, been doing this position now for 6 years, and one person with a vision and a bunch of board people who support the vision, and so slugging it away. So I'm so excited to have Cheyenne on board to help make this vision come to reality. So Cheyenne's going to take us through the presentation, tell you guys what Akuma is all about, what we're doing, and share the vision with you and have you guys all on board. I've seen people like, Councillor Stoddard, who supports the vision and the dream and the direction, as well as Lisa Blackburn, I believe it is. So it's great to see some folks that are there. And of course, our colleagues from HRM, Jill and Jamie Allen. So it's good to see you guys here today as well. So Miss Cheyenne, do you want to tell folks who you are and take it away from there?
Yes. So hello, everyone. Good afternoon. And thank you so much for having Akuma join you at the table today. As Veronica said, I'm the assistant property manager with Akuma. And that's really the best thing about me. So will I have the ability to change screens, or am I going to rely on someone else to do that?
If you just let me know when you're ready to advance the next slide, I'll move it forward for you.
Okay, great. So let's go ahead and we'll just start with the first slide. So I'm sure that many of you have heard of this African proverb: if you educate a man, you educate an individual. But if you educate a woman, you educate a nation. Mm-hmm. And the reason I wanted to start this presentation with this proverb is because when women are educated or shown a new skill, what they do, what their natural inclination is to do, is to teach that new bit of information or skill set to the other women within their reach. And that's how a community benefits when a woman learns something new. As opposed to when a man learns something new, he will go out and find a better job to advance that skill set. So I wanted to start with this because it speaks to how educating women has a transformative impact on many aspects of society and makes great economic sense for a family, community, and a nation. And this is something that we at Akuma hold very close to our heart when making decisions. We can go to the next slide. I'll just give you a brief history of Akuma for those of you who may not know. It opened its doors as the Nova Scotia Home for Colored Children in the early 1920s to a historic crowd. Due to the systematic racism in the province at the time, quite frankly, the white institutions closed their doors to our children who needed housing or social supports. So in the 1920s, we opened up our doors as the first and only colored home in Canada. Although there were colored homes in almost every state in the United States, this remains the only colored home in Canada. In the late 70s, the orphanage closed when, and I must add too, that parents would, mostly women, would place their children at the home to ensure that they had a place to live. So we've been offering housing for over 100 years now. And in the late 70s, when the orphanage closed because orphanages were no longer practical in Canada, Akuma Family Center opened 2 group homes about 3 miles down the road, and they're still there today. In 2014, we rebranded into Akuma, which means heart in the Kaurna language. And in 2016, we began the restoration process of the old home, which is what you see in the picture there. That was the Nova Scotia Home for Colored Children. In 2022, we opened our doors as an intergenerational center and Black business incubator, naming the home, the old home, Kinney Place, after one of the original superintendents of the old home. And I'll also add that the Family Center and Akuma Holdings are the 2 entities of Akuma, and both are registered charities governed by a board of directors. We can go to the next slide. So in a nutshell, Akuma is a geographical hub for intergenerational living and economic prosperity for people of African descent in Nova Scotia. We are Black run and a Black serving registered charity. Next slide. So this is where we are. We are located, we are like nestled in the middle of 3 historic African Nova Scotian communities: Lake Loon, Cherry Brook, East Preston, and North Preston. And as you can see within that circle there, that is Kinney Place. And we're just south of the Black Cultural Center on Highway 107. And we can, next slide. So this is our greatest asset, which is 320 acres of land. We, to the best of our knowledge, until I'm proven otherwise, I'm going to continue to say it, but Akuma is the largest Black land holding in all of North America. And as you can see with our development plans, we have a great vision. And this will give you an indication of the size of the land. As you can see, it starts over here on Highway 7 to the left, and it runs to Lawrencetown Road. The yellow circle indicates where our affordable housing is being constructed right now, which is just behind the Family Center. And the red arrow is where Kinney Place is. Next slide. Okay, so this is just a closer view of the area in which we are permitted to build right now, because we do have some boundary lines. And so this is the top, if I can call it the top of the property, closest to Highway 7, where we're currently developing. Again, you see where Kinney Place is, just to give you an idea. And the blue arrows indicate where our the Rapid Housing Initiative is. This is the initiative that we have for women and children, low-income housing. We have constructed, you can barely see the 4 rectangles around this circle. Those are 4 duplexes with 2 units of 2-bedroom, offering 2-bedroom housing, and we'll get a closer look at that later. But you can see actually where that's situated there. And you can also see the red boundary line that's going through the property. Everything above that boundary line is where we have been allowed to build. But we have, so that's just one of the challenges that we're facing right now, hoping to extend that boundary line so we continue to offer some economic opportunities for our community, like the long-term care facility, cemetery, sports facility, and other things that we have planned. But we can go to next slide. This is just a quick picture of the before and after of the old home and Kinney Place. Next slide. This is what the interior looks like. I offer everybody an invitation to come get a better look at yourself. We have everything from a cafe. I think it's the only cafe. Actually, I believe it's the only cafe in the Preston Township with a wraparound patio, serving all day breakfast. It's packed. I mean, I can't even find a parking spot anymore. Good problem to have. but we have a black hair salon. We have an art studio that can be rented to the public for $30 an hour. If you need a space, come on by. We have a lounge for community just to come together, play some board games. It's a great space to be. Also, the MLA has her, Angela Simmons has her constituency office in there. And we have organizations like 902 Man Up, which is a nonviolence, non-for-profit, and the Africadian Empowerment Agency that have their offices in this space as well. Next slide. So here's a quick snapshot of our current and future plans. Currently, we are working on we have our hydroponic farm, which we purchased last year. I'll show you a picture of that in just a minute, which is a youth-driven initiative, youth-driven, youth-managed, and our Black Incubator program, which is happening at Kinney Place. And we call it a Black Incubator program because we're offering spaces to, like the cafe, at affordable rents, giving them an opportunity to make a profit and get started. Again, we have the Rapid Housing Initiative. This is a picture that was taken maybe a week or two ago. As you can see, this is a picture of the initiative. And actually, I don't know if I can click here or if Katie can click on the link, and it'll show you a quick 30-second video of the property.
The link won't work when we're sharing screens, but it's going to be circulated to the members after.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, perfect. So so the reason with the Rapid Housing Initiative, we wanted to, for the reason that I chose that first, the African proverb, we wanted to be able to offer this to women and to children because we know that their success will spill over to community success. And right now we're hoping to open the doors in early spring. We're looking for May, and we're hoping for rents around $650 to $700 all inclusive. Where else can you get that for a new build? It's very hard to find. So we're super excited about that. Looking to the future, we are in current conversations with Northwood Manor for a 96 seniors long-term care facility. We want to offer some mixed commercial and retail rental units. So having retail units on the bottom and having some housing on top. We are currently in conversations to build a new childcare center. More affordable housing is coming down the pipeline, and a Black vendors market and sports facility are also in the pipeline as well. Next slide. Next slide. Now, this is a picture of the East Preston Daycare, which is currently beside the Akuma Family Center office. And this is going to be a great asset to the women who will reside at the Fairfax homes because the homes are just behind this center, which is one of the reasons why we chose that area. Next slide. This is a quick picture of the hydroponic farm. As you can see, the youth in there are in there harvesting some kale and lettuce. I promise you, this is the best kale and lettuce you will ever taste. It is open to the public on Tuesdays to Thursdays from 11 to 2. If you're in the area, come on by. Trust me, you'll be happy that you did. Next slide. And our community garden, which is a huge hit. I've been told it is the largest community garden in HRM. We have over 40 gardeners. There's gardeners from all over HRM that come from many different countries in the world, a lot of whom are women. And this is a huge success to our land. This is how we started, with an incredible community garden when it was the Nova Scotia Home for Colored Children. And it's great to be able to offer this to community to take advantage of. Next slide. Okay, so as you can imagine, a development project with 320 acres comes with some challenges. This is just a small list of some of the reports and assessments that we had to complete in order to start building. And some of these assessments cost anywhere from $10,000 to $30,000 each. So for a non-for-profit, you can only imagine how difficult this is, but we heavily relied on grants. Thank God Veronica is a whiz at that. And we've been successful. I just want to bring your attention to the last 3 points. And these have been our greatest challenges, which is the arbitrary boundary lines that we've been given by HRM. And also we've never really been told why these boundary lines were given to us. So it would be great if we had an explanation. And we want those boundary lines extended so we can continue to build on the property. And we are only like 1,500 meters away from having water and sewer. So we would love to be able to have those extensions onto the property as well, so we can continue with our plans. But we are hopeful we're going to get there, and we have some great allies and things are looking good. And we're hopeful for the future for sure. Next slide. I also just wanted to mention that we are always looking for volunteers as a charity. And like Veronica said, up until I came on board, she was doing this on her own. I don't have enough time in my day to do the things that are on my list, so I don't know how she did it. So we're always looking for volunteers, and this is just some of the things we're looking for. Next slide. This is ways in which you can connect. This is where you can donate if you'd like to. And next slide. I'm going to end this the way I started this, because I don't think that this proverb can be said enough. But thank you very much for your time and your attention, and again for inviting us to the table.
Wow, thank you, Cheyenne. That's a very stimulating and exciting presentation. Now what we will do is we kind of go around the table and ask people if they wish to make comments or ask questions. And I'm in the practice of doing that alphabetically by last name. So that means that we'll start off with Haneen.
Thank you so much, Cheyenne, for that presentation. It was wonderful. I think this is something that I always ask, and I'm sure my committee members are quite bothered by the fact that I always ask the same question. But how can we help? So what can we do in terms of, as a committee, to help Akuma further its goals?
Well, I'm going to let Veronica answer that question.
One of the things that is a major challenge for us is the boundaries. We accepted the boundary line that HRM gave us, 3 years ago almost now. But as you've seen from slide 7, I don't know, Katie, if you can pull that up, just to point out to you guys that there's a lot. When we started with the development, number one, people probably didn't really think we were going to do it because it's been 100 and some years and what has been on the property, right? But what we didn't realize is there's a lot of water, a lot of sewer, swamp water. And so a lot of the property we can't develop on. And so now that we're into it, and bedrock, Nova Scotia is known for bedrock. So as we start to develop, we're like, oh gosh. So if you see the purple area where it says LTC, that's where we envision our long-term care facility in our partnership with Northwood being. But as you see, it's outside of the boundary that HRM has given us. So that is a big challenge because, as you know, we need seniors housing. We need these long-term care facilities. We're ready to go. We've got the property. Northwood has the expertise, but we can't do it under the current zoning because we have this MOD, which stands for Mixed Opportunity District. And you know what? I applaud HRM because the youngins that are in there now, they looked at it, they had policies, they had rules, they looked at it and said, oh no, we were designated urban reserve, which means you can't do anything on the property. But they looked for, I don't want to say loopholes, but they came up with the new zoning to enable us to start development, which was wonderful. I was excited about that. But now as we're into it, we realize that boundary line is not helping the Black community at all. There's money flowing now, unlike any time that I've seen it. And we want to take advantage of it and do things for our community and for the greater community, but we can't because we have to wait for this regional plan that's taken 2 years. And as you know, in 2 years, everything shifts. We don't know if those monies will be flowing the way they are now. Those opportunities will be gone. So if you're in a position that you can say to HRM, move the boundary lines to the power corridor. If you see the power corridor running through our property, even if they could just moved it, shift those lines to allow us to get on with it. I've got 3 organizations, soccer or sports organizations that have come and said, hey, we want to build a stadium, a domed area. See where the soccer is? In the green, outside of the boundaries. And these are opportunities that we're going to miss if we don't do it. So as you can see from this map, really we can't do a lot. We have submitted for the 3rd application with RHI, crossing our fingers, doing prayers that we're going to be successful so that we can build more affordable homes. But we're limited as to even where we can build them. And we don't want to cluster all affordable homes together. We want to have mixed housing. And so as you can see from that, there'll be clusters. That's not what we want. It would be nice to move them around on the property so you're not, in essence, ghettoizing people together.
Okay.
So when you ask how you can help, push HRM counselors to say, hey, you need to extend those boundaries.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Anine, for the question, and thanks, Veronica and Cheyenne. That takes us to Councillor Blackburn. Would you like to make a comment or ask a question?
Yes, thank you very much. I just want to follow up on the boundary. So I'm just a little confused about what boundary are we talking about here? Are you talking about a community boundary, or I'm just not sure what the boundary is that you're referring to. So that's my first question. The other comment is, I think we've got something coming as far as water and sewer is concerned. We have been told, and when I say we, I mean councillors, have been told that the next update on the regional plan review is coming in March. And it's at that review that we're going to look at the water service boundary and the transit boundary. So if you haven't reached out to the councillor for the area to just get her to make sure the regional plan team are aware that water and sewer are needed for this area, please do that, because that's definitely something that the regional plan review team is tackling right now. But yeah, if I could just get just sort of a clarification on the boundary issue, that'd be great. Thank you.
So again, Katie, back to the map. The red area there, Lisa, is what the city has said to us, moving north in that area. This is where you can develop. That's it. That's the boundary they gave us.
Okay, and so everything outside of that red area is not zoned for the development?
It's still zoned urban reserve, which means
okay,
you can't build on it. You cannot get a permit.
Gotcha.
So all
Okay.
we're saying is just move that boundary a little bit so that we could do some more development.
Perfect. Okay,
And
I
at
understand
the time,
completely.
Yeah, at the time it was logical. I accepted, everybody accepted. We, because we want to get on with the development, but we're further in the game than, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It looks to me like this project has completely outgrown the boundaries that were originally prescribed to you. So, and I have a feeling that the regional plan will address this issue as well and rezone some of those lands, if not all of them, outside that boundary. But yeah, that's something I'll touch back with Trish Purdy on that and see what she knows about it. But all right,
Yeah.
that is very good to know. Thank you so much.
We've been told with the regional plan, it's going to take 2 years.
Oh, well, they've been at it now for about a year and a half. So we're making progress.
Okay.
yeah.
That's good to hear. It's good
Yeah.
to hear.
But definitely in March. Oh, look, and there's Jill. I will step aside and let Jill take it from here because she is the subject expert on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not the subject expert on the regional plan, so I don't want to misspeak for my colleagues, but I do know, as Councillor Blackburn noted, there is going to be a report that's coming up soon. My understanding is it's going to be setting the framework for the phase 4 of the regional plan, which is going to be looking at extending the water service boundaries. And I will double check for you, Veronica and Cheyenne. I'm pretty sure Acoma is included in that review as well too. I know that you've been having a lot of conversations with Leah and her team as well, but so we'll confirm that stuff for you. But yeah, that water service boundaries and urban reserve boundaries should be being looked at as part of this 4th phase.
That will be awesome. Yes, I know we were in the mix, but as I stated, we heard 18 months to 2 years. So this is good news. Thank you. Meeting's over. That's great.
Adjourned.
I don't think so. We have some other questions and comments. Thank you. Thank you, Lisa, for those comments, and Jill, thank you for your input on that too. So next person, Jackie, what would you, any comments or questions from you?
Yeah, thanks very much for the presentation, Veronica and Cheyenne. I guess the question I have is, how much of the funding for affordable housing is coming from the National Housing Strategy?
100%.
Great, thank you.
That's correct, right, Jill? Because it's a funding from the feds as well as from HRN.
So yeah, so anything that's funded through the Rapid Housing Initiative, it's been 100% through the National Housing Strategy. I don't know if you guys have applied for any other funding for any other housing through the National Housing Strategy, but anything through Rapid Housing.
It's in the mix. It's in the mix now with the application.
So Veronica, that is the reason why the timing is so important, because once the National Housing Strategy funding is spent, that opportunity closes off. So I can see why timing is important. So thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jackie. Liz Fraser, do you have any questions or comments you'd like to make?
I think I'll be in learning mode today, but I appreciate the presentation and appreciate the opportunity to learn.
Okay, thanks. So that takes us to Councillor Stoddart, Iona. Do you have any comments or questions?
Hi, Veronica and Shailene. Thank you so much for this presentation. Very familiar with what's going on. All of my questions have been answered. I didn't have a lot, but I'm so thankful that you brought forward this information for the ladies. It's really helpful. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. And Liz Vickers-Drennan. Liz, any comments?
So Cheyenne and Veronica, thank you so much for this presentation. It's really hope-giving to kind of see all the large next steps that are in the works, and to see kind of where the needs and where the pushes need to happen. I guess the fact that the housing's opening so soon is very exciting. I was just looking, we hear a lot about just how bad our housing crisis is, and it's the same situation everywhere that we hear, you know, wait lists for affordable housing and all this. And I was just looking to get a sense of what your perspective on that has been. I'm sure you have folks, unfortunately, lined up to have access to this housing. So I was wondering if you could speak a little to that.
We sure do. The minute it was announced that Acoma was successful in the RHI, people started calling, and, you know, my sister, my, you know, aunt, and my mother, and the whole bit. And for us at Acoma, that was not a hill that we wanted to die on. So we're partnering with a number of the organizations that are already in that business. The shelters, ADSIM, the Y, those organizations that are already out there at Preston Area Housing. So we're saying to them, you identify the ladies that need this housing. And we're looking at it as it being the long-term housing for these families. And so we have an intake team that we're working with to identify the 8 families that will go into those homes. Because you know what, in our communities, everybody knows everybody. And when it comes down to selecting and who gets in it, wow, that could be a really tricky game for us. So that's how we chose to manage it. Tracy would know well, correct, Tracy? It could be quite taxing in our community.
Oh, we could get ourselves into some trouble there.
Exactly. So does that approach sound good to you, Tracy?
I think it's a very safe and responsible approach. That way we have somebody who's in that business making the decisions. It supports ACOMA. It keeps it from saying, well, you picked your cousin and you picked your best friend. And it's also taking off some of the work for ACOMA. This is not the work that ACOMA does. So yes, I think it's a very wise approach to this.
Now, we did have one priority that we have implemented, and that the residents, first of all, should be residents of the township. Failing that, if there's no township, then we'll go to people of African descent. That's it. And that is actually the stipulation with the RHI agreement anyhow. It's for African Canadian women and children. So we're happy with that.
And I don't think you'll have any problems fulfilling finding folks who live in the Preston Township, because there is such a need for housing. So many people stay at home with mom and dad while they're raising a family because they can't get a home in their community. So this is perfect.
Yeah. The challenge for us with this one as well, it was our first time out of the gate. So they're 2 bedrooms. But what we're finding, people are saying, well, what about the 3 and the 4? So that was the next application for RHI. 3 and 4, that's as practical for us. So that was the next application. So.
Okay. Any other questions or comments that you would like to make now that you've heard responses? Hannah, did I miss you?
Yes, but that's okay.
Oh, my apologies. Thank you for raising your hand. Thank you.
No worries.
My apologies.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I actually drive by ACOMA every single day, twice a day, because I live in Lake Echo on the border of East Preston as well. So thank you so much. I did not know most of that. And it's really great to know. I don't have any questions at this time. But I wanted to double check if we have the contact information for you, because I think I have some resources in terms of volunteer positions that could be covered by grants, and my company can take care of those.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so I'd love to stay connected.
And we look forward to the daycare moving into the facility. We're really excited about that. What a wonderful partnership that will be.
Oh yeah, that would be fabulous.
Yeah. For sure. And what organization, Hannah, are you with?
So I actually own a marketing firm based in Bedford. So we do social media, photo, video strategy, all of that fun stuff. And I work with a lot of nonprofits who end up getting grants for those things. So we.
Oh yes,
Hannah, let's connect, honey.
So if Veronica and Cheyenne, if you are willing, if you would share that information with Katie, you have Katie's email address, then Katie will share it with all of the members of our committee, if you're agreeable to that.
Yeah, and I just put it in the chat too.
Sure, so that we
awesome. Thank you.
We can keep in touch. Thank you, Hannah. Any others that I have missed? So Veronica and Cheyenne, I just have a question. I sort of, I'm like Jackie, I think about the money, where'd the money come from and so on. So you've told us that the money is federal money. Now, my question is about property, rental property. There'll be long-term expenses, right? Associated with rental property, maintenance, upkeep, management, and all that. So does the grant provide for any of that, or is it just a capital grant? And if it doesn't, then where is the money going to come from for that?
From wonderful people like you guys who are going to donate to Akuma. No, what it is no, the grants are billed grants at this point, but our goal is we have business entrepreneurships on the property as well. So we're looking at apartment buildings sorry, grandchildren just came in, with commercial units on the bottom, so we can still continue to generate some funds. Right now, we have continued to do our business basically on, Nana's in a meeting, honey. So sorry, just lost my focus. We've been doing on grants. So during the time that I've been at Akuma, we have applied for $16 million in grants, and we've been successful for about 6 of those. So I think we're doing pretty good overall. So that's how we do it. We do not want to leave our community in deficit positions. So we're always thinking, okay, we're going to have these 8 units there. We need to be able to sustain them. How are we going to do that? Through entrepreneurship, through businesses, through commercial units. So that's next, is like once we can get a building up there and get some stores in it. We envision that we are, and I'm sure all of you guys know about Member 2. Well, we want to be Member 2 too. So that's what we envision. Okay, go get some food. Go. Sorry for the disruptions.
No worries. We're women. We're used to multitasking.
Yeah. That's how we do it.
Yeah, we are.
Too cute.
Yeah. So I find your presentation as I'm with Hannah. I knew nothing about what you do, and I'm just really encouraged to hear your story, and to think that you are going to make such a huge impact on the lives and of some women and children in our community. It's a huge impact, and it's a lot of work. And I think I can speak on behalf of all of us who are really care about affordable housing for women and children. We really applaud you for what you are doing, and wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Thank
Our
you.
next big thing, other than the RHI, is what we've coined as our working poor families. All of us are 1 and 2 paychecks away, the way the economy is right now. So we need to consider those family units as well, because we don't want them to fall into the affordable line. So we need housing for those families as well. So we thank you guys for allowing us the time. Come on out to Kinney Place, have a meal, very affordable. If you're having meetings, our Bald Center, $30 an hour. You cannot rent a facility. We have birthday parties, all kinds of functions in that facility. Yeah, come on out and hang with us. Thank you for the time.
Thank you so much, everyone.
You're very welcome, and thank you.
Now let me go feed these babies.
Okay.
Thank you, Tracy, for putting us on your agenda. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tracy.
Bye-bye.
No worries. Thank you.
Yeah, great suggestion, Tracy. But,
See you, Iona.
Bye, folks.
bye-bye. All right. The next item on our agenda is information items brought forward, and to my knowledge, there are none. So that takes us to our next presentation, which is going to be from Jill. We've already heard a little bit from Jill. So Jill, we're glad that you're with us. Jill McClellan is a principal planner with the HRM Planning Department, and she's going to talk to us now about the affordable housing initiatives that the HRM is undertaking. So over to you, Jill, and then we'll do the same thing. We'll follow up with some questions. Jill was good enough, sorry, I'm just going to say Jill spoke to us about 2 years ago now. So she knows a little bit about our committee and its work, but our committee members have changed. And so she's new to you and you're new to her. So thanks for making time for us, Jill.
No, thank you so much for having us. And in fact, my colleague Jamie Ellen is going to do most of the talking. So I'm going to share the slides of the presentation and move them along. But Jamie Ellen's going to walk everyone through the content.
Great. Hi, everyone. My name is Jamie Ellen Klenovic. I'm a planner on Jill's team. I have unmuted. Yeah. Okay. So I'm a housing planner with HRM. Can I have the next slide? Yikes. Okay, there we go. There we go. Perfect. If we're going to talk about affordable housing, we need to understand what we mean by affordable. Affordable for whom? The Halifax Regional Municipality Charter defines affordable housing as housing that meets the needs of a variety of households in a low to moderate income range. But what does that mean? CMHC provides some guidance by describing core housing need. Core housing need is housing that meets any one of the following criteria. Housing that costs more than 30% of low to moderate income households' gross income. Housing costs include the cost of the mortgage or rent, monthly heat, water, and utilities. Housing that does not meet minimum occupancy standards, or housing that does not meet the needs of the occupant. So, for example, a family of 4 shouldn't be living in a 1-bedroom apartment, and if they are, they're in core housing need. Next slide. We're starting to see some data from the 2021 census being released, including some information on who's experiencing core housing need. The data show that 12% of all households in Halifax census metropolitan area were in core housing need in 2020. Households in core housing need are more likely to be renters, to be women-led, and to include lone parents. Renters are more than 4 times more likely than homeowners to be in core housing need, and lone parent households are 5 times more likely to be in core housing need than 2-parent households. Next slide. CMHC also recently released its rental market report for 2022, which shows that the vacancy rate in Halifax is still low. It is sitting at 1%, and the average rent for a 2-bedroom apartment has gone up 9.3% to just under $14.50 per month. Purpose-built rentals include apartments that are not built as condominiums. They do not include houses, duplex, or townhouses that could be rented or owned. Housing research suggests that a well-functioning rental market has a vacancy rate between 3 and 5%. So we are missing that mark in Halifax. The report also found that challenging mortgage terms mean young people are staying in rental housing longer, which drives up the demand, which in turn increases prices. For all types of apartments, average rent increased by 8.9%. Nova Scotia had a 2% rent cap in effect during this time frame. So what happened? Within the same structure, a 2-bedroom apartment occupied by a new tenant was 28% more expensive than one that did not turn over. So that increase in rent is being driven by new occupancies. Can I have the next slide? This bar graph shows the percentage of purpose-built rental units in Halifax that are affordable for each income quintile, according to the 30% of income standard. In 2022, only 3% of housing in HRM was affordable for households in the lowest income quintile. It's only when we get to the 3rd and middle quintile that we see more than 50% of rental apartments being affordable. Next slide. Halifax's population saw a small spike in 2022 and increased by 4.5%. The number of rental apartments increased in that year by 1,348 units. Next slide. If housing supply does not keep up with the increased demand of a higher population, we can expect the price of housing to increase, which can nudge previously housed people into homelessness. Halifax is seeing a concerning increase in the number of unhoused people. The point-in-time count conducted in the spring of 2022 found that 586 people in Halifax have no permanent home. Point-in-time counts are surveys conducted across Canada and provide a one-day snapshot of homelessness in different cities. The previous count in Halifax took place in April 2018 and recorded 220 homeless people, so the number has more than doubled since then. Indigenous and Black Nova Scotians are overrepresented in people recorded in the point-in-time count, and 41% of people recorded had their first experience with homelessness during the pandemic. Next slide. This is the housing continuum. It is not meant to represent a ladder or hierarchy. It shows 8 major types of housing, including from the left, homelessness, emergency shelters, transitional housing, social housing, affordable rentals, affordable home ownership, market rentals, and market home ownership. Not everyone will experience each stage of housing, and people will often move back and forth between different types of housing throughout their lifetime. Next slide. So what is the municipal role in housing? Each level of government has a role to play, and we need to work together. Not one level can solve issues of homelessness and affordability alone. Here are some examples of the actions each level of government has taken to address housing affordability. Can we just scroll through this animation, Jill? So the province has social housing, public housing, financial support for operating costs, powers granted to the municipality, financial support for capital projects. And the federal government has, of course, the National Housing Strategy, incentives for first-time homeowners, financial support in the form of seed funding for new projects, and financial support for capital projects. So often we hear about the co-investment fund that CMHC operates through the National Housing Strategy. And what that means is they co-invest in new affordable housing projects with another level of government. So that's why you see financial support for capital projects under the province, under the federal government, because they often team up to support new projects. And then in the purple on the bottom, we see things that everybody needs to work together on. So of course, research and policy development, surplus land, everyone offers some surplus land, and advocacy and support. Can I have the next slide? With this need for collaboration in mind, the Housing and Homelessness Partnership was created in 2013. It promotes cross-jurisdictional collaboration and includes representation from government and civil society. Work completed by the Housing and Homelessness Partnership to date includes the Halifax Housing Needs Assessment and a 5-year strategic plan. Can I have the next slide? Thanks to the legacy of amalgamation, HRM has 22 land use bylaws, 489 different zones, and hundreds of development agreements. Can we just add the content to this slide? I didn't realize this was an animation. Apologies. This adds complexity to Halifax's development environment. Complexity adds time, and time means money, which is why we are working on a long-term bylaw simplification project. The first step was one that many of you will be familiar with, Center Plan, which received council approval in 2021. Keeping in mind that supply has to keep up with demand, we are removing barriers to various forms of housing that have been historically restricted, including secondary and backyard suites, shared housing, tiny homes, and shipping container conversions. Some other initiatives that are ongoing include cluster tiny home developments, which are permitted in some limited areas, and we're considering expanding where they are permitted, and continued collaboration on the regional plan review with the goal of increasing residential density, especially in the core. Next slide. We also have a new residential rental registry, which received first reading in January of 2023, and are working to clarify and regulate where short-term rentals are permitted. Next slide. Central Plan requires developments with more than 2,000 square meters of floor area to pay a public benefit to HRM. 60% of the public benefit must be cash in lieu of affordable housing. This so-called bonus zoning does not require on-site affordable housing, and the public benefit amount is calculated through a formula in the land use bylaw. The density bonus only applies to the regional center. Staff are working on an interim density bonus program that would require public benefit for affordable housing in some areas outside the regional center. A density bonus is a type of inclusionary zoning, and staff are also working on a proposal to Regional Council that would start a planning process to roll out a more comprehensive inclusionary zoning program throughout HRM. The parameters are still under consideration, but the new program could require on-site affordable housing. Next slide. The funds collected from cash in lieu are dispersed through the HRM Affordable Housing Grant Program. The second round of grant applications closed in December and are currently under review. We also operate a program where nonprofit housing providers can have their municipal construction and development charges waived, along with a percentage of their property taxes. Next slide. HRM is required to sell any surplus land at market value with some exceptions. Land sold for affordable housing is a permitted exception and can be sold for less than market value. There are 6 properties suitable for affordable housing that Regional Council has declared surplus. Because high land costs are one of the main barriers to affordable housing, making lands available for affordable housing promotes new development. Next slide. Community land trusts are non-market housing that provides stability and security of tenure without requiring ownership. A legal trust owns the property for a social purpose, often to ensure housing affordability in perpetuity. A community land trust has a different management structure than a housing cooperative. Residents are tenants of the trust as opposed to being members of a co-op. We are currently working with the Housing and Homelessness Partnership to better understand how community land trusts could be employed in HRM to improve housing affordability. Next slide. Well, some of you, well, all of you will have heard about an exciting federal program called the Rapid Housing Initiative, or RHI. RHI requires very rapid construction of deeply affordable housing. The first round of projects had 12 months to build their project from agreement to occupancy, and the subsequent rounds have 18 months. There are 2 RHI funding streams. The city stream flows directly from CMHC to municipalities to fund their chosen projects, and the project streams where proponents apply directly to CMHC. RHI Round 1 included 3 city stream projects in HRM, which were the Sunflower by Adsum House, the Blue Building by the North End Community Health Clinic, and the Diamond Bailey Center by the Mi'kmaq Native Friendship Center. Next slide. RHI Round 2 funded an additional 3 projects through the city stream. They included a project by Souls Harbor Rescue Mission in West Chesapeake, a project by Akuma on Main Street in Dartmouth, and the Overlook, an AHANS project in North Dartmouth. HRM also supported AHANS with a project stream project on True North Crescent in North Dartmouth in Round 2. Next slide. RHI Round 3 was announced on November 10th and offers $1.5 billion for up to 4,500 new permanent affordable housing units across Canada. HRM is again participating in the city stream, and applications are currently being considered. Successful projects will be announced in the spring. HRM received just over $11 million to build at least 36 affordable housing units in Round 3. Next slide. Some additional projects that we have on the go are assisting with the provincial housing needs assessment, developing a municipal housing strategy, and writing a no net loss policy, which would require that any affordable units lost through renovation, conversion, or demolition would have to be replaced. Next slide. So this is my contact information. Thank you very much for inviting us to come and talk to you about our affordable housing initiatives. Happy to respond to any questions.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Jamie Ellen. There was a lot of information there in a very short time. So I'm sure there'll be some questions and some clarification. Again, using...
I was going to add that there's going to be a quiz at the end, so
hopefully
stay on the numbers.
Yeah. So, well, maybe I'll start with Councillor Blackburn. Can I start with you?
Most definitely. Thank you very much. And thank you so much for the presentation. A lot of information there, absolutely. But I think it's, it's all important information. And I guess, the one thing that wasn't mentioned was emergency housing. And just to clarify that, I guess the big takeaway from all of this is that HRM doesn't physically have the capability to build apartments, housing, buildings. But what we do is we get that funding, and then we funnel that funding to community groups that do this work, like the Mi'kmaq Native Friendship Center, like Akuma that we just saw. So, I think it's that's the, really a good takeaway from this, and so appreciate that. But, just to touch on the emergency housing piece, that is, something that rests with the province. And I don't know if, if Jill or if you can, sort of expand on that, but just to sort of make the clarification between, affordable housing and emergency housing and who does what, I think would be good for the group to know. Thank you.
Yeah, no, 100%. So as Jamie Ellen was noting in some of the slides, HRM, our role mainly in housing is as a regulator of land use. So we get to say where the density goes, as Veronica and Cheyenne were noting, we get to say like where the urban service boundary happens, what the properties are zoned. So that's our kind of our main role in regulating land, regulating housing. We also can support affordable housing through waiving fees, through through participating in our RHI, where we give money to not-for-profits to build. But under the charter and under our agreement with the province, we don't have the ability to actually provide housing ourselves. So even though some of us may love to let's use all of our budget to build really deeply affordable housing, we legally cannot do that, because it is up to under the authority of the province to be able to do that. So the province has the role to be providing rent subs. They provide funding for emergency shelters. Even when we provided funding to build the modular units, once they were built, the province took that over, because again, we don't have the authority to actually be able to be to give the provision of housing. I hope that helped clarify.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Jackie, what questions or comments do you have?
Yeah, thanks for that. I have a couple of questions that are probably more related to clarification. So the problem with cash in lieu, and I think we all recognize that cash in lieu is a problem because it doesn't actually contribute to affordable housing units. And so if we have a less than 1% vacancy rate, and we see the pressure on lower income folks trying to actually find a place to live, I think the cash in lieu is a problem. And I'm just wondering if that's a HRM / provincial piece that could be revisited, because we're seeing lots of buildings going up. And when we look at the average rent in those buildings, they're simply not affordable.
I can respond to that one. So you're absolutely correct. So our affordable housing grant can fund new units, but what we're finding is we've had 2 rounds of our grant running so far, and what we're finding is that we're seeing a lot of applications for renovations. So sometimes housing that is in very poor condition, needing to be upgraded to maintain it in the housing stock, is something that we're able to fund. But this cash in lieu model means often that the new housing is not necessarily provided in the same place where the new development is taking place. So you're starting to see things like more affordable housing concentrated in some of the lower income part of the municipality, and that's not ideal. So that's one of the things that we're going to hopefully address with the new inclusionary zoning program that will be coming to council hopefully in the spring for initiation. So that means that council's kind of giving the planning staff permission to look into this issue further. So the idea would be that, in a perfect world, you're quite right. The best practice is that we don't take cash in lieu, but realistically, if we're going to be providing really deeply affordable units, what the research shows is that that's not necessarily best practice to integrate those units in market developments. So if we had a hybrid model where we could require some on-site units and also take some cash in lieu, then we could maybe have the best of both worlds. But that is something that we're looking to address kind of with the next step with the broader inclusionary zoning program.
Thanks for that. I have a follow-up question, if I may.
Yes.
So I think the cash in lieu just allows deep pocket developers to buy their way out of the social responsibility model. And I think that's a problem, and it should be questioned, and it should, particularly for women and women with children and women escaping domestic violence, it really reduces their opportunities to get out of communities that they simply, either you're quote unquote ghettoizing women and children at risk in the same communities where violence is happening to them, and that's a problem. So I think the cash in lieu, deep pockets, it feels to me very problematic. The other is as of right in development. Again, I think a deeply problematic piece, and just to read from the information online, public notification does not occur for individual as of right development projects. I think that is also problematic. So, in terms of who is benefiting from both cash in lieu and as of right development, it's people with the money to do whatever they wish to do. And it's not really taking a social responsibility look at all. So I appreciated the slides that you showed, which really does show that this is a significant problem. And I do worry that if we have as of right development and cash in lieu, we're not going to actually tackle the real deep-seated problem of housing affordability, particularly that affects women and women with children. So I'm wondering if you could just reflect on what, if anything, is happening around the as of right clause. Thank you.
So one of the things that was intentionally done with Center Plan was to remove a lot of the requirements for development agreements, which, so is everybody kind of familiar with what as of right means? Is that, yeah, no.
Clarify.
Yeah,
please.
of course. So there's a couple of different ways that development can be permitted in any municipality in Nova Scotia. So so-called as of right or by right means that there's a list of rules in a land use bylaw, and as long as you meet those rules, then you get a development permit. You don't need to do anything else beside what's required by the land use bylaw. And the development officer has to give you a permit. There's no discretion involved at all. So that's by right. And then the second requires a planning application, which would in Nova Scotia be a development agreement. And that requires a negotiation between the municipality and the developer to come up with, you might talk about density, you might talk about the height of the building, amenity space, how much public access there would be to the site, those kinds of things. And that would require a public participation program, a public hearing, and ultimately approval by regional council or community council, depending on the type of development. So there's an opportunity for the public to comment on the development. So the trade-off there is by right development is much quicker. And a development agreement, best case scenario is it would take a year, but frequently would take significantly longer than that. I think I worked on one recently that had been in progress for more than 10 years. So there's kind of a trade-off there between an opportunity for public comment on each development versus providing that, minimizing that complexity that I was talking about in my application that adds cost to the development process. So there's always going to be an opportunity for public comment, because anytime a land use bylaw comes into play, there's an opportunity for there's a required public participation program and also a public hearing for the land use bylaw itself. But it doesn't provide necessarily an opportunity to comment on each individual project. So I think that's kind of the balancing act the municipality is trying to perform, is trying to balance that speed that comes with an as of right development, and maybe trying to provide that advantage to projects that wouldn't necessarily see a lot of public comment, that wouldn't be particularly controversial, versus allowing that public comment on projects that would be more interesting to the public.
Okay, thank you. Are you good, Jackie?
No, I'm still concerned that the two, cash in lieu and as of right, actually privilege the developer and has nothing to do with the need for affordable housing and HRM. And I think those together are clearly in favor of developers doing whatever they see fit with the land that they might have. And the cash in lieu is just another loophole that allows them to buy their way out of that, providing affordable housing. So I think the two of them go together very well for developers, and I think something should be done. It feels to me like a little bit of a shell game that people with deep pockets can just as of right their way into developing whatever they wish, and then cash in lieu so that they don't have to actually look at the housing affordability question. I think those two are really quite dangerous and antithetical to affordable housing, particularly for women. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Jackie. Lisa would like to speak to that.
Yeah, if I could just get some clarification on the cash in lieu. It was my understanding that the cash in lieu was sort of seen as the preferred method to address the issue, because if we forced a developer to designate so many units in a project as affordable housing, that we didn't have the ability to force them to do that past 15 years. And I'm just wondering if Jill can maybe fill in some blanks there, because I was pretty sure that was the reason why we sort of why we preferred the cash in lieu, because we can take that money and then funnel it to Adsum House, Akuma Holdings, that type of thing. The groups that are doing, these big affordable housing projects, and those units will be affordable forever. Whereas if we told a developer, you must designate so many units in your building as affordable, they were only going to be affordable for 15 years. Am I, Jill, correct me if I'm wrong, if I've gone down a wrong path here, but that was my impression of the.
Yeah, I think the 15 years was something we were imposing, but where the reason why through center plan we decided to go with cash in lieu is it's one of the big reasons is we weren't set up to actually be able to monitor the units. So whether it was 15 years or 40 years, we had no way to actually ensure that these units were actually being kept affordable, that they weren't going to somebody's family member, that they were actually going to those who needed it. So we are beginning to kind of get a bit of an affordable housing team within planning and development. We're hoping through this inclusionary zoning work that Jamie Ellen's leading, that we're going to be able to get a much more robust program, figure out if we can partner with another entity as well too to help either monitor or house the units as well too. So that was a big issue for the cash in lieu.
So it's we recognize the limitations of it, and we're working on it, I guess, is the takeaway there.
Exactly.
All right. Thank you for the clarification. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Thanks. All right. Can I move on to Liz Fraser? Is there anything you'd like to ask or comment on?
I'm just learning bunches, so thanks everyone.
Okay, no problem. Just want to give you an opportunity. And Hannah, I'm not going to forget you. Here you go.
Thank you for sharing all of the information. There's lots that I knew bits and pieces about, but this is very, very helpful. I am a little confused about the density bonus. I may have just missed that at the speed of which all the information was given, but if you could further explain the density bonus and how that works, that'd be great.
Yep. So there's a formula in the land use bylaw for the regional center, and it's specific to that plan area. So that includes the Halifax Peninsula and Dartmouth inside the circumferential highway. That requires a certain amount of money. So it's in the land use bylaw for each square foot. It's based on the value of the property. So properties that are over 2,000 square meters will be required to pay this public benefit, and it's money to the municipality. 60% of the public benefit has to be money to the municipality in the form of cash in lieu of affordable housing. So the other 40% can be something else. So public art or affordable community space. There's a list of things in the land use bylaw that it could be, but 60% of the value has to be cash in lieu to affordable housing. And that money goes into our affordable housing grant. And every year we have an application window, September to December, and folks can apply for kind of a list of projects that could be eligible for funding through the grant. So that would be renovations to existing affordable housing, new affordable housing, building assessments, or if you wanted to purchase existing housing and turn it into affordable housing, then we could fund that as well.
Okay, thank you. That clarifies it a lot better.
Okay, thank you, Hannah, for that, and Jamie Ellen. Councillor Stoddart, do you have any comments or questions?
No, Madam Chair, I think I'm good. I'm very familiar with what we're talking about, and I just echo everything that Councillor Blackburn said.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Stoddart. And Liz Vickers-Drennan.
I do have a question specifically about I might be getting the name wrong, the Housing and Homelessness Partnership. I did a quick Google search as to the members to make sure I didn't miss any of the logos, but I didn't see any representation of some of the community groups that we see who are working directly with the population experiencing homelessness, or some of the groups perhaps that work in the transition house sector. And I wanted to perhaps hear a little bit more about that, whether that's the structure of the committee or that input is being received elsewhere.
I can take that one if you'd like, Jamie Ellen. So yeah, so the Housing and Homelessness Partnership, we have representation through the nonprofit sector through United Way, Halifax, and through the Affordable Housing Association of Nova Scotia. We have had representation from, so we used to have two kind of subgroups out of the partnership. One of them was the Affordable Housing Working Group, and another one was the Homelessness Working Group. And so the chair of that group would also sit with the partnership as well too. And so we've had representation from the YWCA as part of that. And then when those groups kind of disbanded, we were working with the Coordinated Access Group that works out of AHANS as well too. So we've had representation from Sherry Lecker. I think at one point we were going to have representation from Welcome Housing as well too. However, that group has kind of, it's in limbo at the moment. So yeah, we currently do not have somebody representing the service provider sector, but that's something we're kind of working out as a group, is how do we make it more formalized that we do have that representation, because it is really integral to any of the discussions we have.
Thank you.
Very good, Liz. Got your questions answered? Okay, I have a question. It has to do with, again, with funding, because I thought I just heard the Akuma said that all of the funding for their housing came from the federal government, yet the HRM is talking about it as if you're providing funding. That doesn't make sense to me.
So that's a specific program, the Rapid Housing Initiative. And so as I zipped across in my presentation, there's two different streams. So the city stream and the project stream. So the project stream is a little bit different, where projects apply directly to CMHC, but most of the funding is distributed through the city stream, which basically means that CMHC has identified various cities across the country and said, okay, you can have X number of dollars and go and find projects, and you have to find projects that provide X number of units. And then throughout that process, the municipality kind of manages the project in terms of making sure they're staying on budget, making sure the permits are being issued smoothly, making sure that any other hiccups that they run into are being being worked out to make sure that they stay on time. So Halifax doesn't provide any money to those projects. We have a separate grant program, the Affordable Housing Grant Program, where we provide money collected through the density bonus. But those are two separate programs.
So,
I
may
may just add to that too. So part of the city streams funding, it means that if the project fails, the city bears some of that responsibility. So it's, we make sure when we're partnering with nonprofits that we make sure that, they're viable and that these projects are going to, go through. But it provides an extra level of comfort to CMHC to know, okay, well, the city has said that this is okay. If something horrible happens and the project doesn't get complete, the city's going to bear some of that responsibility to make sure that the money gets back to CMHC. So it kind of makes the stress test a little easier on the nonprofit if the city is providing our support.
So it sounds to me like the city's operating as kind of an administrative sort of backstop and so on. Are there any affordable housing projects in the HRM that the HRM is not involved in?
Yes, I'd say that, sorry, Jamie Ellen, I'll let you fill in the gaps that I missed, but there's kind of, see kind of three big funding sources for affordable housing and for like the deeply affordable housing. So there's the RHI, which gets you deeply affordable housing. There's also Reaching Home, which is a federal initiative that provides money to support the reduction of homelessness. So that can be in the form of developing housing. So some groups have been able to acquire units through that. Some of the Reaching Home money went to help fund the Overlook development as well too. So it can go towards those types of projects. And then there's other programs through CMHC that are kind of on the higher end of affordability. So they might partner with a developer or sometimes a not-for-profit. But those kind of are more your moderate affordability projects where the city, might provide a letter of support for. Again, we'll waive any fees that are associated with any sort of nonprofit housing. So that's kind of where our involvement will be. But there's then a lot of programs through the province as well too. So the province has I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but they've been, providing funding to support the development of some deeply affordable housing as well too. So some of it was, I think, helping Northland Community Health Association acquire some property in Dartmouth and in Halifax to provide transitional housing and supportive housing. So yeah, there are stuff that the city may not be technically involved in, but we do always have like some sort of support through waiving our fees. And then we also have our property tax program too. So if you're a nonprofit that's providing housing, depending on the level of affordability, you get between 50 to 100% in your tax relief.
Yeah, so the other question I had to do with that, the fund, because I think at the very beginning, when you put the slide up of municipal responsibilities, provincial responsibilities, and federal, it said the municipal would give financial support to nonprofits, but what it's actually doing is waiving fees. Is that correct? It's not actually giving, the HRM is not actually giving grants to the nonprofits, or are they?
Yeah, we are, but what do you mean by HRM? So basically it's not our money in the sense that this was money collected from developers that then we take into our density reserve fund and disperse through our affordable housing grants. So it's not money from our operating revenue. It's money from the developers that they have been required to pay.
Yeah, and I think another important thing to acknowledge with the funding that we're able to provide, I mean, we are starting to get more money into that reserve through the density bonus fund, but it's not going to be enough. It's, we could fund one small project with the total in there. So what we end up generally doing is we fund smaller projects or help supplement funding so other groups can obtain the larger funding through CMHC, because the municipality doesn't have the same budget as our, other levels of government do to be able to do, really big, grand amounts of money to support. But I will say that we definitely through our staff and through what we can provide, we are trying to do what we can as a municipality to still be able to support the housing without the same budget that we have that maybe other levels of government have.
Okay. I think Liz Picker-Strennan, did you want to get in here?
Yeah, I just had a quick question. We're hearing a lot about these different programs, and some of them are on a very large scale, some of them are smaller scale, some of them are very specific. But being the Women's Advisory Council, one of the topics we talk about a lot is taking into account a gendered lens when these programs are being developed. And at a federal level, they do that to a certain extent, but within the HRM itself, and when it comes to either the groups with which you work or kind of how the budgeting and the accessibility is thought through, I was wondering how much of a place that analysis and that thought process had, and just kind of that approach of taking into account the barriers and the different challenges that folks might be having along the way.
Do you want to take that one, Joe?
Yeah, so I mean, through the grant program we do have a prioritization for environmental, reducing your environmental efficiency or increasing your environmental efficiency, and increasing accessibility. We don't have anything in there that's specific to women oriented organizations or targeting a certain amount of funding towards housing that supports women. A lot of that has to do with it being a new program and, not really understand, we want to make sure that we can kind of support whomever needs it. However, we do, it's definitely true in our work that, the need for housing for women is very, very, it's strongly needed. And because we do a lot of like the programs that we end up at being able to support funding are programs that are done through the National Housing Strategy, where there is the gender equity lens that's put on any of their programming. We're able to support, housing through women in that sense as well too. I will acknowledge as well too, whether or not this is fair, the vast majority of people that we deal with in the nonprofit sector are women. So, we're really getting a lot of representation just through that.
Thanks, Jill.
Thank you. Thanks, Jill and Jamie Ellen. Appreciate all your answers and thoughtful answers. Appreciate that very much, and taking the time to to share that information with us. I don't think, I guess we'll have a copy of your slide presentation. I didn't see it ahead of the meeting, but we'll have a copy of that. So if any of us need to look back at it, we'll have that opportunity. So thanks so much for being with us this evening.
Thanks so much for having us.
Welcome.
Thank you.
All right, so we're just about to move on to item 9.1.2, but I'll just a word to the committee members and kind of a follow-up to Haneen's question following our first presentation is we're always thinking, well, what can we do? After hearing all this information, what can we do? And just remind you that our role is to serve as an advisory committee to the HRM through the Executive Standing Committee. And in the past, as you will have seen, the way we do that is we formulate motions for actions that we think the HRM Executive Standing Committee might undertake. And we bring those to our committee and discuss them and debate them. And if the motions pass, it goes on to the Executive Standing Committee. So I'm just bringing that to your attention in case you think, as a result of these presentations you've heard today, there might be a motion that seems appropriate. Having said that, let's move on to Tracy Jones-Grant, and Tracy's just going to speak to us for a few minutes about African Heritage Month, and we've just begun African Heritage Month.
So I will be actually quite short and sweet because Katie's kindly going to send you some links to what's happening in the municipality during African Heritage Month. I just have to open up one of my screens here. We are celebrating the 39th anniversary of the celebration of African Heritage Month in HRM. And I'm going to give myself away a little bit. I've been involved in this for all 39 years. So since the establishment of the Black History Month Association out of the North Branch Library, under the leadership of Terry Simons, Adelia Mooney, and David Woods. So African Heritage Month began as Black History Week. It has grown and grown and grown. One of the things that we say in my community is I'm Black 24/7, 365 days of the year. But this month is not so much for me, but for others to learn about me, my culture, what's happening, what impacts me as an African Nova Scotian living in this province. So this is a real sharing time, but there's a couple of events that I do want to bring to your attention in case you're interested. So City Hall will be lit in the Pan-African colors between February 18th to 21st and February 23rd to 28th. Sorry, I have to look at two screens here, which is always so beautiful. So if you get a chance to go by and take some pictures, even if there's a nice sprinkling of frost on the trees, it just makes such a beautiful, beautiful picture. We are going to working in partnership with the Downtown BID, Business Improvement Development, BID, is that what BID stands for? They're also going to be lighting up the old Halifax Memorial Spring Garden Library. Of course, the flag will fly on the ferries. So there's a whole assortment of things. Halifax Public Libraries is probably one of the biggest sponsors of events that happen. They have their whole list that Katie will share with you. The Black Cultural Center is our lead for the Provincial African Heritage Month Committee. And so events that are happening all over the province are listed on the Black Cultural Center site. So I encourage you to go there because there's all kinds of events happening all around HRM and all around the province. It's a real exciting time. So all I would say to you all is if you have an opportunity to get out, please do so. If you don't, take a few minutes to enjoy the websites. There's some virtual tours that are available on the website. And on our website, halifax.ca, you will actually even see filming of the recent flag raising that we did this week to open African Heritage Month here in HRM. And if you want to see me at my best, just in closing, we had the opening night for African Heritage Month last week at the North Branch Library, and is one of the co-hosts. And that was filmed and is available on the Black Cultural Center's website. So that's really my update, Jane.
Thanks a lot, Tracy. That's great. So just encourage everybody to make sure you have a look at those links that Katie will pass along to us. And as you're able, I hope you get a chance to participate in some of the activities. So thanks a lot, Tracy, and congrats on having been involved for so long. That's kudos to you.
Thank you.
All right. Any comments or questions for Tracy before I let her go? I think all's good. All right. Then that turns it over to you, Lisa, who is going to give us a update on council.
All right, thank you very much, Madam Chair. So since our last Women's Advisory Committee meeting, Regional Council met on January 24th, and the Budget Committee met 4 times. So at the January 24th Council meeting, a motion was passed to move on to the next stage of regulating short-term rentals, Airbnbs, and a public hearing will be scheduled on that very soon. Council voted to give heritage status to a couple of buildings, most notably the home and office of Dr. Clement Ligor, the first Black doctor in Nova Scotia and a hero of the Halifax explosion. The other building granted heritage status is on Coburg Road, and that building actually dates back to 1790. We discussed insurance claims resulting from contracted out snow removal services. We moved a motion to accept $11 million from Canada Mortgage and Housing to help build affordable housing units. And as we've discussed, most of that money, all of that money will be diverted to different community nonprofits that are actually building the affordable housing in the community. Council voted to give first reading to establish a rental unit registry. This is something that we've been trying to do for a long time to get a handle on how many rental units we actually have in the city. And it also gives us, a good basis so that we can start being more proactive with our inspections and building requirements. So that's excellent. We're going to have a public hearing on that as well. We also asked staff for a staff report on establishing a volunteer vulnerable persons registry. And this is something that we've discovered a real gaping hole in our emergency management operations. A lot of folks have reached out to us saying, listen, when we have major weather events like a Hurricane Fiona, for example, there's nobody that checks in on some of our most vulnerable residents, disabled people living alone, elderly living alone, that sort of thing. So we're working now to establish a vulnerable persons registry where people can sign up, leave their contact information, and then during those weather events, we'll be able to reach out to them, or our GEM teams, our Joint Emergency Management teams, will be able to reach out to them as well throughout, not just once, just multiple times during a weather event, just to make sure they're doing okay. As for the budget meetings, that process has started, and now we have each department or business unit coming forward with their budget proposals. First up was the CAO's office, the finance department, and legal services. These are they're considered the easy ones because their budgets really don't change all that much. They're mostly wage driven, and there's very little change involved with those. So we get those easy ones out of the way first. Coming up on Friday, tomorrow, actually, we have the police budget and RCMP. So that will be a long day filled with much discussion indeed. After each presentation, council then votes to add items or remove items from the budget. And we put them onto what we call a budget adjustment list. So if you hear somebody talking about the BAL, the budget adjustment list, that's what it is. And at the end of all of the presentations, we look at that budget adjustment list and debate the items that have been added or taken away. And that process will likely take place in March. And that's it for the latest council update. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Lisa. Any questions, comments for Lisa? Just, Lisa, I was just wanted to comment on the rental registry or the landlord registry, because
Yes.
some of the members here wouldn't maybe not know that we know that community organizations have lobbied the city for this, and we heard some presentations within the last 2 years about it, and so just want to say that we're appreciating that initiative and hope that it goes well.
Yeah, it's going to make a huge difference because, you know, as we said in council during the debate, we don't know what we don't know. I mean, we really don't have a good grip on how many rental units are out there. And so as a result, it makes it very difficult for us to follow up with building code violations and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's going to make a huge difference for sure.
Yeah, good on. All right. Are there any other items? And we didn't have any added items. I think we've covered everything we had hoped to cover this evening. Our next meeting will happen in March, on March 2nd, and we anticipate that we will be meeting virtually. I think we decided, or we talked about this back in December, that we would meet virtually January, February, and March, but be prepared for April meeting to be held in person. And we'll hope for good weather. So when we all have to travel to City Hall to have our meeting. So March meeting, March 2nd, and be held virtually. Again, welcome, Liz Fraser. I hope you've enjoyed your first meeting with us, and hope your head's not spinning too much. And we'll look forward to seeing you at the next meeting. Now, can I have a motion for adjournment? Hannah has made that motion, and the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great night.
Yeah,
Thanks,
good
all.
night.
Thank